Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Craig Lindsay, representing the Western Mining Alliance. And essentially, I've got two parts to this presentation. I'm going to present the first one, and then I'm going to hold off on the second part. Okay, so part one is the administrative history of dredging, the moratorium. First thing is the FLEC report. It was published in 2011, and it provides a primary basis for everything that follows. That's the draft subsequent EIR, the subsequent EIR, the DFW regulations that were implemented by the APA in April of 2012. And then the report to the legislature was April of 2013 by SB 1018, and ultimately resulted in SB 637, which is why we're here. So let's talk about the FLEC report. It's one paper, it's 104 pages, and if you guys would avail yourself of reading it, you're guaranteed to fall asleep after about 10 minutes. That's very technical. So the study time frame was 2007-2009. The BLM and State Water Resources Control Board funded the FLEC study, published in 2011. We went over those points. Here's an interesting little datum. The FLEC report was published in January 2011 before the draft subsequent environmental impact was published in February of 2018. So obviously, the people working on that report were working hand in hand with the people that generated the SEIR, which was Horizon Water and Environment. And out of Chapter 4.2, page 19, there are very few published studies specifically addressing the effects of suction dredging on mercury fate and transport processes. USGS scientists and mercury efforts provided the Department of Fish and Wildlife with preliminary results of their recent research in the Yuba River, and this study was about over a 5-mile stretch downstream from Humbug Creek, which drains Malakoff diggings. So it was focused on assessing the discharge of mercury and mercury-enriched suspended sediment. This new information and data from the USGS was used in formulating the approach to the assessment of the program. So again, they're tied at the hip. There's actually two conclusions from the FLEC report. That suction dredging mobilizes real small 0.063 millimeter or 63 micron sediment, and mercury is attached to it, and that methylmercury in insects was decreased after suction dredging was banned in 2008, and that was a BLM decision predating the 2009 moratorium. So where did they find all this small sediment attached to the mercury? They had dug a pit, it's called Pit 2 in the report. And this is from the report. It appears to remain undisturbed for many decades, perhaps since the days of active hydraulic mining that ended in the late 1800s because of the Sawyer decision. The sediment layers were apparently protected, storm flow by boulders and geometry, and that's probably height above the river. And here's another interesting datum. Pit number 2 was chosen by an experienced dredger as a promising location for gold. No dredger is going to dredge on dry land 30 feet above the water level. So this is the pit. If you can see the cobbles, those are hydraulic tailings. And there's the bedrock on the gentleman on the left. Tailings, they're found in a bathtub ring. Sometimes on my claim, they're 40 feet above the river is the top of them. And that's the North Fork of the American. So I had to get there. This is an old photo, and from Weaverville, it's probably the Trinity, 200 feet depth, and it's on the foam of hydraulic tailings. These canyons were filled with this material, and that material ultimately made its way all the way to San Francisco Bay, impairing sailing ships coming up the Sacramento River. Okay, another thing, this is a conceptual model. So they've got discharge of mercury on the top, discharge of mercury from background watershed to the transport, then its transformation and bioaccumulation in biota. So it's equal arms. It's not equal. Discharge of mercury from the background is way, way more it contributes than suction dredging. So this is river flows. So these are the flows from this year. What's important about the first paper, the Singer paper, he does modeling on the Yuba Gold Fields and the Yuba River, which is where obviously the flood report happens. So I went back in the data. These are record stage levels from 1928. The highest is 1964. It's about 25 feet above the summer river level. Flows are high. They're 50,000 CFS, cubic feet a second. So in that 90 years, 25 feet. If Pit 2 is above the level of that, yes, it was deposited when the South Fork of the U was buried in the hydraulic mining episode before the Sawyer decision. So you could postulate that it would have the highest content of mercury, since no subsequent river stages or flows would disturb the original amount of mercury from hydraulic mining. And that's exactly what they found. They did Pit 1, there was less mercury, and when they did the dredging in the river, there was essentially none. Okay, the other thing is that's never been really thought about, and this has been approached and discussed in the Singer report. 90% of the original sediment deposit delivered to the Bear River Valley remained in terrace storage 100 years after mining. That's from James, 1989. And he hypothesized that modern floods are capable of transporting it downstream. This is a direct quote from the Singer. What it says is that it would take, to move all of this stuff, 0.1%, 10,000 years. So this is a long-term process. It's not going to wash out next week. Just a pictorial, that is the South Fork of the Yuba this January. That's the actual dredge used in the South Fork of the Yuba. A little bit of difference in turbidity. Flowering of mercury, that's thrown around a lot. Okay? Association of flowering with mercury does not prove causality. First time it's mentioned is in literature by Rick Humphreys, 2005, which was a report by the State Water Resources Control Board. And notice the word may be carried by the river to environments where methyl mercury formation can contribute to tissue issues. And from, again, chapter 4.2, elemental mercury is present. Suction dredging has been observed to result in the flowering of mercury droplets, that is, breaking up of larger liquid droplets into many small droplets. And furthermore, it is not clear from the study whether the droplets were flowered prior to being dredged or were flowered as a result of the dredging. They didn't prove causality. They just demonstrated that it was flowered, quote unquote. Here's a great example of using a bathtub and a blender and making flowered mercury. They ran the sediment through the impeller of a pump, which is not how a dredge works. And this is a diagram, a flow diagram of how they concentrated it. Basically, they screened it. Metallic mercury is going to go through the smallest screen and stick to the smallest particles. We did a request for the Inspector General of the Department of Interior to question Dr. Alpers and some of his comments. Interestingly, he wanted to do a real test with a larger dredge than the 3-inch one that was used, but the water boards, because of the concern the test would have more damage, DC'd that, stopped it. So what they did, since they couldn't do the actual test, they did the sedimentation process in the lab. Not real world, they were modeling it. And this is again in the IG report, and this is a direct quote. California Water Board did not want dredging to be the solution to mercury problem. Instead, they wanted to ban suction dredging, which it did initially in 2008. Okay, here's the second part about methylmercury in the biota, the bugs. The report says that, yep, the concentrations were lower in 5 species, taxa of these bugs, and they're basically water striders. It was lower in 2008. Therefore, no dredging caused the methylmercury in the bugs to go down. But if you read the report, insufficient data to determine the cause for the interannual variation. This is from, again, Dr. Alpers. Further monitoring of methylmercury in biota where previous test data exists during the statewide dredging moratorium began in 2009 would be helpful. However, BLM paid for data from 1999 2004, 220 sites. ALPRA data did not hide the additional data, but simply did not incorporate it into the South Yuba River study because the older samples originated from different locations. And another comment from him directly. I did not expect to find conclusive results in the 1 or 2 day invertebrate testing because methylmercury integration process takes weeks to month. And also they used as their control a different location on the Bear River, not on the Yuba. We did a FOIA request for all the USGS data, and there's a lot of it. This graph basically shows that, hang on. That's lower, higher. Most of it is higher. There's no dredging from right here to here.
You're going to have to speak into the microphone.
Okay, sorry. Basically what the graph shows is that there's natural fluctuations in methylmercury concentration in these bugs according to USGS data. It varies on flow and season. The dredging stopped again at the end of 2007 in the Yuba River, and this goes to 2011, 4 years. The other thing is interesting, the FLEC report uses insects as their indicator. All the EPA standards use fish tissue. State Water Resources Control Board uses fish tissue. So why did the FLEC report use this? Insects. Don't know. The major assumption in this whole thing is that methylmercury is from historic gold mining mercury contamination. I'm going to posit that it could be from deposition of atmospheric mercury, and there's only one way to find that out. You do an isotopic fractionation, meaning there's 7 isotopes of mercury. Some are the heavy to the light ones, okay? You can't actually identify where that mercury comes from. Study hasn't been done. So the assumption is that those bugs got it from historic gold mining. Maybe, maybe not. It's not proven. This was a slide I presented in Fresno. Peer reviews were flawed. They did peer reviews on the published study and asked, hey, did you like it? And basically, yeah. For example, what is the potential for contributing substantially to watershed mercury loading, both elemental mercury? The question's flawed. We don't contribute anything. It's already there. We went over this, 3-inch dredge at the confluence of the Humbug, hand dug pits where no dredge could work. So what's really important to realize is they used a model that was flawed. They used a tub with a pump and circulated the water. That's not a dredge. And this is interesting. This again is from the IG report. Dr. Alpers, believes the state may have selectively used the data from the South Yuba River study for its environmental impact report, but claimed he cannot control how his report is used by other entities. And this is the EIR that basically ended us up with SB 637. So if you throw out the FLEC report, you throw out everything. It's inconclusive, incorrect data. And Gita, I'll do this later if we have time. How much time do we have?
In the interest of time, I do have a lot of slides. If you could wrap up, please.
Okay, so let's do this. Real quickly, when Mr. Norman was talking about the things, there's a guidance document called a basin plan. I read it. And they actually want to use tissue from fish, not bugs. So, suction dredges remove mercury. It's been done at Lake CAWB, 84%. Staff report, 98%. It was Rick Humphreys in the South Fork of the American, and FLEC report, 99%. So what we're saying is permitting is de minimis in regards to water quality. We can get by with a Section 404, 401 permit. And we would like to be proactive, because if we reestablish the mercury program that was done with the EPA and water boards, in 1999 there was over 200 pounds of metallic mercury collected. We could encourage the removal of that and lead and establish collection points. And I'm suggesting that the water boards should work with the dredging community to clean up the rivers. Thank you.